Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Wednesday, January 17th. If you're joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. And then after that, we'll go over to RotoWire, talk about the injuries in play for tonight's main slate overall. It's a 9-game main slate on DraftKings, an 8-game main slate on FanDuel tonight. So there is the one final game of the night is cut off on both slates, and then the final 2 games are cut off on the FanDuel side. So going to be a pretty interesting one overall. And then last but not least, we'll get over to DraftKings and FanDuel, talk about my core picks. So that's going to be one player at each position: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. Starting on the DraftKings side, we had Reggie Jackson, $3,900. We were looking for like 19 out of him. Got to 18 yesterday, so I had to give him a push. He only played 20 minutes in this game. Their starters did play big minutes in this game. If they play more like your traditional rotation, you probably get a couple extra minutes out of Reggie Jackson. It probably pays off at this price tag even more so. And then we move down to shooting guard with Kevin Huerter, $5,500. Looking for 27, 28 out of him. Got 23.75, so he was a mess. Played 26 minutes in this game. Kind of scoring dependent. Did get a couple steals in there as well, but just not the greatest day for him overall. Obviously, we're looking for a little bit better out of him. Hopefully, you guys got to some Grayson Allen because he had that really big day. Obviously, we had him over on the FanDuel side. But at small forward, we went with Michael Porter Jr., $6,600. Was looking for at least 33 out of him. Got 29.75, so he was a mess. Mainly scoring dependent yesterday. When I was looking through kind of live, at halftime, he was actually killing it. He was like over 20 points. I'm like, okay, well, he's going to pay off for us rather easily, and then just the second half happened and he just wasn't as good in the second half for whatever reason. Then at power forward, we went Kawhi Leonard, $8,500, looking for 42, 43 out of him, got to 34.5, so he ended up being a mess. Not the greatest day for him overall. Paul George kind of took that extra step up yesterday, which just kind of affected him a little bit overall. And then last but not least, we had Joel Embiid at center, $11,400, looking for at least 57 out of him, got to 68.25. So he was the hit and the highest scoring player on the entire slate. So a little bit of hit or miss here on the DraftKings side. Obviously, if you got to some other good, solid plays, you had a really good chance at cashing. My main line that I rolled out actually did really well, 4 times my entry fees. So that just kind of shows, even if you took the 5 players that I did have here, you had in a Grayson Allen, you had in Mason Plumlee, and I think I played Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as well. You still could have had a pretty decent line overall. And then on the FanDuel side, we had De'Aaron Fox, $8,700, looking for at least 44 out of him, got to 49.4, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate. Then we had Kevin Huerter once again, $5,400, was looking for 27 out of him, got 25.6, so he's a mess. Once again, only played 26 minutes. A little bit more scoring dependent yesterday, but still not a terrible play at the same time. Then small forward, we had our big payoff in Grayson Allen at $5,200, looking for 26 out of him, got to 54, so 10x on Grayson Allen yesterday, so he was a really, really good hit overall. And then at power forward, we have Michael Porter Jr. once again, $6,700, looking for at least 33 out of him. Only ended up getting to 28. He was a mess. Once again, like I said, going into halftime, he had like 21, 22 fantasy points. I'm like, okay, he's going to kill it rather easily. And then the second half, it just did not happen for him for whatever reason. And then last but not least, we had Mason Plumlee, $4,300, looking for 21, 22 out of him, got to 32, so he was a hit overall as well. So a little bit better on the FanDuel side overall. Obviously, if you had some good plays to go alongside the Score 5, had a pretty good chance of cashing on yesterday's slate overall. But with that being said, we'll move over to RotoWire and talk about the injuries in play for tonight's slate. So once again, there's 10 games in total for today overall. 9-game main slate on DraftKings, and then an 8-game main slate on FanDuel for tonight. But with that being said, we'll get into it. So we have the Minnesota Timberwolves without Jalen Clark once again, and then Anthony Edwards is listed as questionable to play tonight. Obviously, that will make a pretty big impact for them overall. If he ultimately ends up playing, you can get to him. But if he doesn't, then we're probably going to see Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Trey Brown re-enter that starting lineup. And then on the Pistons side, they are without Cade Cunningham and Monte Morris. And then Gallinari and Muscala, both listed as questionable. They did recently come over in that trade for Isaiah Livers and Marvin Bagley. And then we have Bojan Bogdanovic listed as probable to play tonight due to a calf injury, so it would be nice to see him back once again. And then we move over to the Orlando Magic. We got Gary Harrison, Franz Wagner out once again, so pretty much what we've seen out of them in recent games. For the Atlanta Hawks, they're without Gaye, Hunter, Krevich, and Wesley Matthews, so no real changes there for that Hawks team whatsoever once again. Then the San Antonio Spurs are without Sissoko and Collins, so exactly what we've seen out of them as of late. And then we move over to the Boston Celtics. We got Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and Derek White. All this is questionable to play tonight. I believe they're on the front end of a back-to-back, so maybe one of these guys ends up sitting out tonight. We'll just kind of have to see as the day moves along. And then we move down to the Milwaukee Bucks, who appear to be all the way healthy at this point in time. The Cleveland Cavaliers are without Darius Garland, Ty Jerome, and Evan Mobley once again. And then Karis LeVert is listed as questionable to play tonight. If I had to guess, I do think he ultimately ends up playing, but we'll just have to see as the day moves along. Then we move over to the Houston Rockets. We got Tari and Victor Oladipo both out once again today. And then Reggie Bullock listed as questionable due to a back injury. We'll see ultimately whether or not he plays or not. If he's out, just kind of opens up a couple extra bench minutes, but nothing too crazy at this point in time. And then for the New York Knicks, Mitchell Robinson's out once again. Jalen Brunson listed as questionable to play due to that calf injury. He's missed their 2 most recent games. I would not be surprised if he ultimately ends up missing tonight as well. These calf injuries do tend to linger quite a bit. And then we have Josh Hart listed as questionable to play for tonight's game as well. So could be a little bit of value on this next team overall. Then we move down to the Miami Heat, who are without Jaime Jaquez and Kevin Love once again. So pretty much what we've seen out of them in their most recent game, where they did actually get Jimmy Butler back. And then on the Toronto Raptors side, we got Christian Koloko, Jakob Poeltl, and Otto Porter Jr. all out once again. Gary Trent Jr. listed as questionable to play. He did miss their most recent game due to an illness. And then Grady Dick also listed as questionable to play for tonight's game. He's dealing with a thumb injury at this point in time. So nothing too crazy here for the Raptors just in general. Probably see a similar rotation to their most recent game. Obviously, if Gary Trent plays, that changes ever so slightly. It'll be interesting to see if they do start Jonte Porter at that center position once again. Obviously, didn't pay off for us on the DFS slate on Monday, but there could be some potential to be had there as well. And then we move over to the Charlotte Hornets, who are without Gordon Hayward and Mark Williams once again. And then they have Bryce McGowens, Brandon Miller, and Frank Ntilikina all listed as questionable for tonight's game. Not really making too big an impact overall there. Obviously, if Brandon Miller's out, probably get Cody Martin moving into that starting lineup. Could be PJ Washington. We'll just have to see as the day moves along. And then on the Pelicans side, just Matt Ryan out once again. For the Dallas Mavericks, they are without Dante Exum. Luka Doncic is listed as questionable to play tonight. That's going to be a pretty big one for the slate overall. Obviously, this is one of the later games. It's the last game of the night on the FanDuel side and the second to last game on the DraftKings side. So Luka being in or out tonight is going to be a pretty big deal. Obviously, if he's out, you can get to Kyrie Irving once again. Tim Hardaway Jr. looks better. Jaden Hardy gets a couple extra minutes there at that point in time as well. And then they do have Grant Williams and Derrick Jones Jr. both listed as probable to play for tonight's game. And then for the Lakers side, we got Gabe Vincent and Cam Reddish both out once again. LeBron James technically listed as questionable and Anthony Davis technically listed as probable, but definitely do expect both to play tonight. And then we move down to the Golden State Warriors, who have Moses Moody, Chris Paul, and Gary Payton II all out once again. So pretty much what we've seen out of them in their most recent games. And then for the Utah Jazz, they appear to be all the way healthy at this point in time. And last but not least, the one game that's not on tonight's slate, we had the Brooklyn Nets without Day'Ron Sharpe and Ben Simmons. And then Dariq Whitehead is listed as questionable to play tonight. I don't really think he's played at all so far this season for this team. He might have got in for a couple games here and there, but not a major part of the rotation either way. And then on the Portland Trailblazers side, we got Moses Brown, Shaedon Sharpe, both listed out once again. Malcolm Brogdon is listed as questionable, and then we have Baji and Ayton both listed as probable to play tonight. Obviously, that DeAndre Ayton news is going to be a pretty big one for tonight's slate overall. Obviously, kicks Dopreeth back to the bench at that point in time. Not recommending that you play DeAndre Ayton if you're playing like an all-day slate or a single-game slate or anything else like that, but just something to make a note of since he's missed quite a bit of time as of late. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight's slate. As always, I will be posting all the injury updates as they do come out throughout the day, as well as the starting lineups as they do come out throughout tonight as well. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So at the point guard spot on DraftKings, we're going to go with Miles McBride here. I'm going to assume that Jalen Brunson is out once again. Like I did mention in the injury section, that these calf injuries do really tend to linger, especially for basketball players. A lot of times A lot of these players do ultimately end up missing like 2 weeks with these calf strains, so would not be surprised if Jalen Brunson's out once again tonight. Miles McBride has taken on a boatload of those minutes and played really well in those minutes, so at $5,300, looks like a pretty good value overall. You're looking for 26, 27 out. I'm currently projected for about 30 to 31 tonight. A little bit slower matchup versus Houston Rockets, a little bit better defensive team, but definitely do like the upside that he could present in general. And then at shooting guard, we're going to go with somebody on the opposite side of that game in Jalen Green. He's $5,800, probably the cheapest price tag we've seen him at for quite a while. Looking for 29 fantasy points out. He's averaging almost 30 so far in the season. Currently, I'm projected for 30 tonight as well. So definitely looks like a decent point per dollar play, at least on tonight's slate overall. A lot of good, interesting options at that shooting guard position just in general, though. And then we move down to small forward with RJ Barrett, $6,600. Looking for 33 out. He's averaging 30.5 so far in the season. But since he's been with Toronto, he's been playing really well. So definitely think he outperforms his price tag once again tonight. Currently have him projected for about 35. Could have a little bit of upside for more, but also could have some downside for less at the same time. Then we move down to power forward. We're going Lauri Markkanen once again, $8,300. Looking for 41, 42 out. Averaging 42.5 so far in the season. Pace up spot versus the Golden State Warriors tonight. So definitely do like him once again. He's been playing extremely, extremely well as of late. And, Utah as a collective whole has been playing really well too. So definitely do Lauri Markkanen once again tonight. Currently have projected for about 45, 46. Definitely could have a ton of upside for more once again though. And then last but not least, we have Rudy Gobert, $7,100, looking for 35, 36, averaging 36 so far in the season. It's a good spot versus the Detroit Pistons tonight. Obviously, him and Jalen Duren probably going to be going at it in terms of getting some boards and everything else like that tonight. But definitely like the upside that Rudy Gobert could present overall. Currently have him projected for 38 fantasy points tonight. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $16,900 remaining, just over $5,600 per player. So maybe you have to get a little bit more creative with the rest of our lineups here. Not a ton of cheap values, at least early on for today. That could definitely change as the day moves along, though. So definitely going to be a pretty interesting 9-game main slate overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core plays over there as well. So on the FanDuel side, we're going to the same point guard in Miles McBride. He's $5,100, so a couple of dollars cheaper than he is over on DraftKings. Looking for 25, 26 at him. Do expect Jalen Brunson to miss once again tonight. These calf injuries really do linger, so would not be surprised whatsoever if he's ultimately out once again tonight. I do like Miles McBride for close to 30 fantasy points. He's played a lot of minutes with no Jalen Brunson out there, and he's played pretty well in those minutes overall as well. Then at shooting guard, we're going to his teammate Dante DiVincenzo, $5,700. Looking for 28, 29 points out. I'm currently having projected for about 29 tonight. He's another guy that's been playing really well in the absence of Jalen Brunson. He's been playing pretty big minutes in most of these games as well. So definitely do like the upside that he could present overall. And then we're going to move down to small forward with RJ Barrett once again, $6,700. So looking for 33, 34 out of him. The season average is a little bit under 30, so not the greatest there, but since he's been with Toronto, he's been pretty good. He's been rather consistent as well, so definitely do like that upside that he does present today. Currently, I'm projected for about 35, 36 fantasy points tonight. Then we move down to the power forward position. I ultimately ended up on Isaiah Stewart here. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup with the 2 big lineups for the Minnesota Timberwolves as well as the 2 big lineup for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, no Marvin Bagley there does open up some more opportunities as well for this front court for the Detroit Pistons overall. So definitely do like Isaiah Stewart tonight. You're looking for 27 out of him at that $5,400 price tag. Currently averaging about 23 so far on the season. Obviously, he's dealt with some injuries and everything else like that. But in his most recent game, he did play big minutes, so would not be surprised if he does that once again. Currently having projected for 28 fantasy points tonight. And then last but not least, at that center position, we're going with Bam Adebayo, $9,200. So I'm not super in love with his price tag, but just kind of compared to everybody else, looks like the best points per dollar player at that center position overall. There's probably going to be somebody that jumps him as the day moves along, but at this point in time, Bam Adebayo, $9,200. Looking for that 46 points out, averaging just over 44 so far on the season, and I do currently have him projected for 46 fantasy points tonight. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $27,900 remaining. just under $7,000 per player. So a little bit of room of flexibility to be had there, whether you want to pay up for a star player, a stud player, and then pay down a couple other spots, you can definitely do that. Or if you want to take a little bit more balanced approach, that's definitely fine on today's 8-game main slate overall as well. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, January 17th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I do ask that you please note whether those questions are FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then, as always, I'll be listing all the injury updates as they do get announced throughout the day, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. And then about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock, I will leave my updated core as a pinned comment. So definitely be sure to look out for that. If there's any other changes to the updated core after that point in time, I will leave them as a reply to that comment down below as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we just have NBA DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the core picks. And then with that being said, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and my promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Parlay Play, and Prize Picks. If you are a brand new user to any one of those three sites, when you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Parlay Play and Prize Picks, that's 100% of your initial deposit up to $100. For BetUS, it's 125% of your initial deposit up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there if you're interested in getting into sports betting or prop betting just in general. And then if you do have any other additional questions related to that, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.